Back when we were kids, there was only the encyclopedia was only that wide. There was not much to know.
Did you stick in the hoop when you were a kid?
Yeah. No, they hadn't invented that yet. All right. Before I start this, help you out a little bit. So one of the weird questions that I put in one of your projects across the street, which one is it? It's the one that you're working is fixed. Okay, it's like question number one. It's
like you're dressing on it.
in the second part. It talks about list what are some minor alterations you can make.
Yeah.
The reason why that's in there is because it's one of the 1,234 line items that the FAA gives me to do. And so looking through all of the things that I have to cover, that was one of the things that I had to do, so I put it right there. Maybe it's not a fair spot to put it in because you guys really haven't been exposed to a lot of type certificate data sheet and major alterations, repairs. It's more of a second year thing, but since we're doing props. So let me tell you what I'm looking for on that and why it's there. So first, you have to decide if something is a major alteration or a major repair. Now, again, it's a little unfair because I think Stephen had the good point. Well, are we working as a mechanic, which we can't do anything, or am I working for a repair station, which I could do if it's a prop repair station? Well, it's more of a prop repair, propeller repair station question. But the question gets into what alterations can you make to the propeller without calling it a major alteration. So once I have a major alteration, what do I need to fill out? 337, right? So you can alter a plane as long as it's a minor alteration. Well, a minor alteration doesn't describe the scope of the work you're doing. It just describes that the alteration you're making is something along the lines that the airplane came out with. For example, is changing out an incandescent light bulb with an LED light bulb a major or minor alteration? It's a major alteration. Well, maybe that's not the best example because they're starting to change their tune on this one a little bit, at least going, it is a bulb. But, we talked about changing out an air filter. If I have a paper air filter on my airplane, I want to put it one of the new bracket ones, that's a major alteration. All right? So just because it's a simple thing doesn't mean that it's a major alteration. So in looking at props, how would you figure out we'll keep it simple. Looking at an airplane type certificate data sheet, how would I know if something's a major alteration or not? Yeah. Is this a question or an answer?
If it's something not listed on TCDS.
Right. So it was a little easier, I think, back in CAR days, civil air regulations, because they would list all these items on the type certificate data sheet. So it made things kind of easy. Although now you have the pilot operating handbook, and in the pilot's operating handbook that's supposed to be in the airplane, it's mandatory. You go to the equipment section and it has all the equipment and all of the stuff that was optional, what it's mandatory. It'll have like a code that says this is mandatory, like an airspeed indicator and a compass, and it'll have something that is like maybe optional, like a child seat in the back or something like that, right? So you don't have, so if I have a Cessna 150 and I want to put the little child seat in the back, which if you know Cessna 150s, it's kind of laughable because you have to be a small child to fit back there. But anyway, I want to put the small child seat in. Is that a major alteration? No, it's part of the type design and it's allowable equipment, so it's not a big deal. Okay, so now we can talk about propellers. So we look at the propeller. What would be an alteration to propeller? Well, obviously you can get into some crazy stuff. Well, I want to drill lightning holes in it, just like Swiss cheese or, yeah. I want to add de-icing systems or stuff like that. Okay, well, fine. Is adding a de-ice system a major alteration?
Yes.
All you have to do is look up the propeller type certificate data sheet because there's a type certificate data sheet on engines, propellers, and airframes. So look it up. Does it have anything in there about de-ice systems? If it's a fixed pitch prop, I can pretty much promise you, no, it's not. So throw it out. It doesn't mention anything about a de-ice system. Okay, no. Well, maybe you get into it. It doesn't mention anything about adding something, right? It just gives you information. It tells you the diameter, it tells you the pitch, it tells you the spacer. Well, what did it just tell you? Diameter, pitch, spacer.
So change any of that. that.
So if it says the diameter has to be between 74 to 76 inches, then if I go to 72 inches, that's a major alteration. It wasn't allowed. Or I want to, I'm Evan over here, and I want to weld, some tips on it, make it go longer. He's JB Weld certified. So that's a major alteration. All right, I'm putting it on my home built, and some home built guy wants to do. He's like, well, I'm going to put a big old engine in this thing, and now I got to really repitch this prop, right? Or I'm going to put automotive pistons in because they can do whatever they want. Now I got all this horsepower, so I want to repitch the prop to absorb this horsepower. So you send it off to the prop shop, and you say, yeah, I need you to make this, instead of a 60-inch, I want a 70-inch pitch or something. Can they do that?
It's on TCDS.
Well, not according to that. Now, if the guy says, no, it's totally experimental, well, that's between you and the prop shop then. But the answer would be no, they can't, because the type certificate data sheet gives you the pitch that it has to be at. So you can't go beyond those parameters. So that's all you're really doing is looking that up and seeing what's allowable. Don't make it too big of a thing. Going into FAR 43 Appendix A, you're looking up what's a major alteration, what's a major repair. It's like, well, getting in the weeds a little bit. I mean, that's good, but that's the idea. Follow? So I could give you something that is for a constant speed 3-blade, and it may have de-icing systems on there. So could I add a de-ice system to it? Yeah, absolutely. So, okay. Next thing to talk about is some of the problems you run into with, and again, we're still up against Cooper's notebook issue, so I can't write too much.
You did good yesterday.
I'm trying, yeah. So you can write your stuff. So you do get into problems where you have to diagnose and deal with constant speed prop issues. So there's not much you can do with the prop besides fix a few little nicks, dings, repaint it, take it off, put it back on, really. But if you do have to troubleshoot these things sometimes. So, the prop is hunting. It's going back and forth. RPM is surging back and forth. That'd be a very common thing to do. So what are some of the troubles you can get into, or what are some of the reasons why this could be happening? Well, it could be a governor problem. What can you do with a governor?
Adjust the pitch, adjust the stop.
That's it. You can adjust the stop. You can take it off, put it back on. We can take it off and look and see if there's metal on the screen. Because there's a screen there we don't check, except at overhaul. It's the one screen you don't check at overhaul.
So what if there's stuff in there, can you just change that gasket and put it back on?
It would depend to me on which side it was. So if it's the governor side and there's a bunch of metal, I would want to change the governor. If it's the engine side, there's a bunch of metal, I would probably want to change the engine. So yeah.
If you're having surging because you have low oil, it could be like air going through and it's causing.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
So maybe check your oil levels.
Maybe start checking oil level. Yeah. I guess I was just, jumping over that one, assuming everybody was going to do that one, because the pilot should be reporting, not only is the prop kind of surging, but so is my oil pressure gauge. Are the two related? Yes. If you're low on oil, yes, they're related.
It's really low, but I also don't have any. Could have a leaky line or some spurting out.
Oh, you know it. It'd make a gigantic mess. Lycomings have their governor. Some of these Lycomings have the governor, rear-mounted governor, and so it has an external line goes all the way to the front of the engine. And there's an airworthiness directive to change out all of the elbows. When you talk about AN hardware fittings, if they're blue, that means they're aluminum. If they're black, they're steel. And you had to have steel with stainless steel lines. So anyway, you have to get in there sometimes and pull the prop and clear the sludge out of the crankshaft tube. It can actually get kind of small in there apparently. But one of the other thing is that transfer collar that I showed you guys, where the oil comes through the governor, then has to go into something where the crankshaft is. Well, what if you have a lot of crankshaft to transfer collar wear?
Just slip right past.
What's that?
Slip right past.
Yeah, it'll blow right out, right? So that's a close tolerance fit. And if that starts to wear out and you have problems, well, this is what you can do with that. You can use a differential compression tester gauge and actually make up a little plate. That's not the picture. Oh, I guess I didn't. Anyway, make up a little plate right there, and you actually use a differential compression tester, and you blow air into the port that the high pressure governor line's going into. That's going to go through the transfer collar, and you're just going to see what's my rate of loss. And there's a service instruction on that to see just how much air loss you're allowed, or you can just read it right there. You can put 40 psi in, and you should have 6 to 35 is acceptable. That's really low.
That's really a big range.
Like how they clarified that outside of 6 to 35 is not acceptable. It's already said.
Yeah, above 35 not acceptable, below 6 not acceptable. You think that
We
through.
figured that went to 6 to 35.
Wait a minute. So the number one gauge, you're putting 40 psi in.
Wait, so you, oh,
Yeah, so you're just gonna have loss no matter what.
So if he goes over 35, you got a blockage. That's the problem. And if it goes below 6,
Transfer collars.
yeah,
Gone.
yeah,
It's wide open.
it's not even in there. So that's why it's that range. It's a big range.
It
All
just
right.
say acceptable, not good.
That's right. Ooh, recommend overhaul. All right, we talked about putting the screen in. Yeah, if you put it the wrong way around, you're just going to smash down the screen. Let's see. We talked about prop tracking. What's one of the hardest things to do with prop tracking like this? With a wood block or something? Well, for starters, the airplane's on wheels and it moves.
Oh, yeah.
So you got, you got rubber tires with air pressure, you have struts, and you can't move this thing more than a 1/16 of an inch.
just take the engine off and put it on.
And you're turning the propeller against the compression that's in it. So in the real world doing this, well, this is the real world, but out in the field doing that, it's actually harder than you think. You
You
move
just
the
stick it on
airplane.
those little jacks that you do when you take wheel bearings off.
There you go.
You just do
yeah.
that
Yeah.
and do your prop tracking.
Pull your spark plug.
All right, let me see. What can we do? A certified mechanic may perform or supervise maintenance, preventive maintenance, or alteration of an aircraft appliance. Or what is an appliance?
Like a washing machine.
Washer, dryer, your microwave? So you have a coffee maker installed in an aircraft?
Yeah, cigar lighter.
How about a magneto, a carburetor?
Sounds like one too.
Okay. Or part thereof for which sorry for that,
So Serena can do work on it.
Serena can't, rated, but excluding major repairs to, major alterations of propellers, or any repair to or alteration of instruments. So don't forget that. So we cannot do major repairs and or major alterations to propellers. Well, Serena can. This doesn't apply to her.
Anything.
May not supervise the maintenance, preventative maintenance, or alteration of, or approve and return to service any aircraft appliance thereof for which he is not rated unless he is satisfactory performing the work concerned at an earlier date. If you have not performed the work at an earlier date, you have the ability to show it performing it to the satisfaction of the administrator. Who's that? Yep. Or under the direct supervision of a certified appropriate rated mechanic. I'm just seeing a lot of people out there right now who decided that this doesn't apply to them. And they're out there doing work on Saturdays and after hours on planes, and I think some people are going to get in some trouble. If you're going to do that, make sure you know what you're doing. All right.
Sign someone else's AMP number.
There you go. Prop major alterations. The alteration propeller, when not authorized in the propeller specifications issued by the FAA, are an alteration. So is a change in blade design always an alteration, major alteration? No, it's not. If it's part of the type certificate data sheet or propeller specifications, then it's not a major alteration. See, it says these things when not included in the prop specifications. Major repairs. Now this is just repairs of the following types are major repairs. See, there's no, it's just, this is. Any of this is a major repair, don't care what it says in the book. But changes these, number 3, these items, if they're in these prop specs, it's not a major alteration. You're allowed to do that. But these are all major repairs. Look at that. Repairs to composition blade. So if you have the
Composition
I'm reading the word in front of me.
Yeah, well, I asked you what a
Oh.
composition.
Composite.
Okay.
It has a composition.
Pause it with exclamation
Composition.
marks.
All right, Jesus, I just want to
So what is it? I'm sorry. Repair. So if you have a composite blade, can you do a repair to it? You have a little rock nick.
Nothing.
Nope.
Good luck.
Nope.
Take it off, put it on your wall.
Yep.
Wow.
Sorry, sir. Blade's no good.
Any repair to or straightening of a steel blade. What if you have a rock chip on a steel blade?
Sucks.
I don't know. Is any an ambiguous word?
No. I think it's pretty straightforward.
Yeah, it's pretty any repair. So is blending out a minor nick a repair?
Yep.
Can you do it on a steel blade?
No.
Nope.
Is painting
Well,
painting over a rock chip.
yes.
Yeah.
Bondo and I'm not just painting a lot. That's
Yeah, it's just a lot of.
let's see. Overhaul. Oh, repairs to deep dents, cuts, scars, nicks, etc. Well, how much is deep?
Yeah, that sounds like more than 3/16, I guess.
But it might be diff on.
Yeah, even AC20 is expensive.
Yeah.
It's not subjective, huh?
All right, I think we already talked about balancing.
Yes.
So I used to have you guys do balancing. It was just an exercise in futility because balancing props to me is a little weird. On some props, they give you a place to attach weights, and then it makes sense. Most of the constant speed have a hub that has screws all the way around it, like this one right here. All these little screws you can hold a plate on. Well, you can pull out the screw and you can put a weight there. But what if you have a fixed pitch, like the one you guys are measuring across the street? Where are you going to put the weight?
Well, one of the big bolts.
Just leave a bolt out.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. Smaller bolt.
Yeah, smaller bolt with
Lead wool.
Would those have a bulkhead too? Bulkhead on.
Yes, but that's balance. That's more of a dynamic balance. This is a static balance where you're not balancing the bulkhead per se. So that becomes a problem. So it's like, where are you going to put the weights? So if you don't have a place to put the weights, then what are you going to do?
Start shaving off.
Start shaving off one, adding paint to one?
So I got a question about that. He's talking about when you have a nick or a scratch in the prop and you address it. They say do it to the other blade. Do you just do the same repair on the other blade? I mean, it feels like a.
Oh, I get my chisel out and I kind of see how deep that little gouge is. I go the other blade and pink.
No, he kept mentioning it, but he mentioned it in passing. Well, make sure you balance it out by taking off the same amount.
He was talking about corrosion. So I think more what he was talking about, and that's what I do, is if you have one blade that it maybe needs a repaint on one side more than the other, I'm going to sand both sides and paint both sides.
Oh, so just paint.
Yeah. If you're going to sand one, sand the other. But no, if you get a nick in one, I wouldn't go hacking the other one. Just keep flying where you have been flying and hope you get a nick on the other side.
Yeah.
Yeah, just go the opposite direction.
Yeah.
So a prop that is out of vertical balance will not stay vertical.
Oh. That sounded like a trick question.
No. A prop that is out of horizontal balance will not stay.
Horizontal. Rests vertical.
Yeah,
Start it over.
I'm pretty sure those look angry.
Let's see.
getting kind of close.
I used to get quite a bit into, I don't know why I did this, in the King Air version of the turboprop, but I don't really feel that that's what I want to do. Let's see, unfeather, we did that. Yeah, the Hartzell used on the PT6. I'll just kind of throw out some, where was my...
Beach
That was
bath.
like a King Air, I guess.
Beach bath as well.
Is that what that was?
There's like a dozen King Airs based here.
Yeah.
Well, if Textron's got them, I'll go to work.
Nah, dude, fuck that.
Why?
You've got your 200s, your 250s, 260s, 300s,
I don't know what I did in my lever pictures.
360.
No, we don't want to do that. We already did it.
That's much more.
You're going.
Oh,
That's the one I was looking
that was a deer.
That's what happens when you run in an airplane and you ask your buddy to go check the boots on it. Yeah.
He's not a dude or is that an animal?
I think it was a deer. Oh, I hit a deer down there at the bottom. Hit a deer.
And I hit a deer also?
Yeah.
How the hell is
What's
that
even going on?
How did that play in the middle of the day?
Four of the players. When you play the baby like that, you don't tell the baby.
You're gonna need to do a test.
Let's see. We did governors already. This is why I don't sit in line with the propellers.
Oh, yeah. What do you do? Just
Larry
roll
Singh,
over
right?
jack?
Yes, it's a VW bug right there. This is in Sonoma. This guy up in Sonoma has this thing.
Is
Is there a pusher prop?
It's gotta be right. Very
Oh, yeah.
What was that? What was that plate? Is that
That's all.
Scorpion.
But wait, let me see.
Looks like that.
That is like that Looney Tunes one where it's like, for those pesky pedestrians, the front prop.
Oh yeah.
Front prop engine will deal with them quite swiftly. Install advanced wiper blades too.
Let's see.
Clear bottom muck.
You want to see an ugly aircraft, sir? You should look up the Scorpion
Is that even a depiction? Look a little different.
See, I did get into the PT6 and talked about it, but then I have talked about how PT6 works. And since I never actually flown a PT6, don't feel like I'm really qualified to tell you. Although the levers are a little bit different for this type of aircraft. We have they're all black. Throttles, prop, and condition lever. So you don't, yeah, which is kind of like a mixture because it goes to fuel shutoff, but you have high idle, low idle. Did Phil talk about this stuff?
I don't think we went much into condition. Yeah.
Yeah, high idle, low idle. I have one of the lights on. One of the lights on. One. Thank you. Let's see. Turboprops, they have 3 levers. Throttle power controls engine power through the full range from max takeoff back through idle to full reverse. Oh yeah, reversing propellers. That's what I have to talk about. So some propellers are reversing. How do you make a prop go into reverse?
Turn it more. Yeah, just go past low pitch.
You go past low pitch backwards, but how does that happen up here in the cockpit?
Very careful.
Detent on the.
Detent where?
On the throttle.
On the throttle.
I think it's all the way right and down.
So, yeah, that's reverse. Yeah. That is reverse, yeah. You got to hit the clutch. That's this pedal right down here. It's the lower left one.
Mine is all the way left and up.
Yeah. All right, so for reversing propellers. So there are reversing propellers. They're a lot more complicated because you have it's called a beta range. Beta, like there's alpha and then beta. So beta range is pretty much 0 anything backwards, and it'll actually back the airplane up. The problem, and you can find reversing propellers, well, like King Airs, I think they're just standard. You can't not have it. And they're used to decrease the landing roll. But you can also get reversing propellers in piston engine aircraft. It's not very common. I had one customer who had one. But you do find them. In fact, I think that customer, after I left the shop and stuff, eventually just said, man, it's just not worth it. It's the extra expense, weight, and all that just to save some money on some brakes. I wouldn't do it. But anyway, so beta range is reversing propeller. And most of your turboprops are going to have that. I think all the turboprops have it. Even the single engine ones that are in some of the crop dusters and stuff. I don't know about...
The PC-12 has it.
That's what I was going to say. I don't know about the Pilatus, but okay. So the way you reverse a propeller, it's a little... Things change now. You're going to grab the throttles and you're going to go past a detent backwards. The further back you go, the more pitch and power you will put on the prop. Doesn't work that way going forward, right? Because pitch and power are 2 different levers. But when you're going into beta range, Pitch and power is just the throttles going backwards. The more you go back, faster the engine's going to go and the more pitch it's going to give you. And why do we have beta range? Shorting landing range. Okay. Let's see. So the power levers does that. The power lever also selects prop pitch when in the beta range. Power levers max idle. Yeah, said that. Condition lever, talked about that. Has a fuel cutoff, low idle, not important. All right. So then the propeller controls. What's this back in here? This red and white striped area. What do you think that is?
American flag.
That is your feather position. Can you feather in flight?
Yeah.
I hope so.
I hope so. Can you reverse in flight?
Yeah. Yeah, you have to.
Mm.
Okay, when you're landing, you're still flying.
Everybody wants to look out to it, right? Oh, we missed it. Wait a second.
Is it tied to the landing gear?
I believe that at most all planes it is tied to the landing gear. However, I've heard that some jump planes disengage that so they can come down way faster.
Yeah, they like nosedive.
Yeah. Yep. So, but I believe that at least most planes have a WOW or weight on wheel switch. I like to call it a squat switch because I don't want to say wow. A squat switch, which is a micro switch on the landing gear. So when the landing gear touches down and the weight of the aircraft comes down, the scissor links are going to come down, and there's a little switch in there that senses that. And then it'll say, okay, now you can go into your beta range.
So,
Do you want to go just a little bit long so I can let you guys go in a little bit?
yes.
Okay.
Does your prop have to be in a certain position before you can do that? Or can you go from like high
Yes.
all the way down?
Yeah, high all the way, just pull it back.
I think you can, yeah. But you land in high RPM.
Okay. Okay.
So as part of a landing procedure with the constant speed prop, you always bring it up. You're on final, you bring the prop all the way up. It doesn't, okay, so if you do it too soon, it's obnoxious. So you're coming around to land, and if you still have a lot of power and your RPM is kind of high, and you're like, oh, I better put in the prop, you're going to go from a high pitch to a low pitch, and it's going to,
Yeah, it's like.
the engine now, the RPM goes way up. You're like, well, you shouldn't have done that. Didn't sound right. Right? But if you do it right, you've got the power back all the way, or at least not much power. The prop's already on the low pitch stops. And so then you push in the prop knob. So if you have to go around, it's already in high pitch. Low pitch, high RPM. For a go around. So if you do it right at the right time, you'll never hear a pitch change or an RPM change because it's already on the low pitch stops. Follow?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. Everything else, kind of the same: on speed, under speed, over speed. I don't want to get into all that stuff. One thing that's kind of interesting about this plane, it has 3 governors. Let's see.
Oh, is it one per engine and then one master governor?
No, it's 3 per engine.
Oh,
And there's only one engine?
So it's got 1 governor, just like we talked about. Uses a second overspeed governor in parallel to take over if the primary governor fails to keep the RPM under 2,000 RPM. So apparently that's your RPM range.
Yeah, 2000.
See, I have it set for 2120 RPM. I crossed out a bunch of stuff, not sure, but we'll just say 2 rather than get into it because there's different types. And a third governor that controls fuel flow in the event both the other ones fail.
Alright.
So apparently this engine could overspeed real easy. So that would be the point.
Yeah, if you did 3 backups.
yeah, triple redundancy apparently.
Yes. Now let me see if I have one slide here that I used to do. See if I still have it. I think I threw it out. Here we go. Nope. What was this one? Oh, jeez. So, air charge. There's your air charge table out of which propeller?
Oh, the hydromatic.
Hartzell.
The
Hartzell.
air charge.
Yeah, we already watched that. That was the plugs in there. Got the A-hole. So this is the charge for the Hartzell. Air pressure. He said to check it when?
Every engine.
Annual or
100 hours.
every month.
Like a fuzz.
Yeah.
So is it like whichever one comes first or something?
Yeah.
like that?
Every annual or month?
All right, there's your PT6 governor control. So memorize that for the test. And then I'd made this chart at one point because my lecture, as I did it, I went through all these different props and I realized I was making it way too freaking complicated. And I could just lump props into just major categories and it worked just fine. So, I don't know. But anyway, what it is, like we have the Hamilton standard. Is it counterweighted? Yes or no?
Yes.
What moves prop to low pitch? What moves prop to high pitch? And increasing the speed or spring pressure does what? Decreasing speed or spring pressure does what? So if we look at the Ham standards, they have counterweights?
Yes.
Because it's even called a Hamilton standard counterweighted prop.
All right.
All right. So what moves prop to low pitch?
Oil pressure.
And so high pitch, spring pressure. All right. The Macaulay. Well, now it gets what Macaulay? It depends. So that's why maybe this isn't the great. Yeah, non-feathering. Yeah, see, I made it more complicated than it need to be. So we could just lump these into big ones. So Macaulay, no, I'm not even going to do it. It's just I made it more complicated than it needed to be. Hydromatic prop.
No counterweight.
No counterweights. What moves prop to low pitch?
Oil pressure.
Yep, and what moves prop to high pitch?
Oil pressure.
Yeah, okay, so, all right. Yeah, that was just making things more complicated than it had to be. We already looked at all this. Was that a different picture? No, that was that one. So since that says all, it's all folks, that must be, that is
There's like
all.
7 sides after. Yeah.
There are, but this is, let me see. Oh, okay, sorry. That was the governor installation.
Just like a regular.
I don't see anything wrong with that.
Oh, we already saw that, which is cool.